in the names of Deputy Mary Butler and Frank O'Rourke. Both deputies have 2 minutes each.
Minister, I warmly welcome the HSE's decision to reimburse FreeStyle Libre for children and young adults. As you are aware, almost 190,000 people in Ireland have diabetes. This is a chronic disease that takes a lot of management. This device, which allows blood glucose levels to be monitored without invasive finger prick testing, is an absolute game changer for anyone suffering with diabetes. In some cases, patients have to test their glucose levels up to 10 times a day, and this can be a real inconvenience and discomfort, especially for children. While welcoming the news, clarity is also needed, and I suppose, Minister, why we're here today is we need the meat on the bones now. We have questions to ask you, and obviously you may not be able to answer them all here today, but we'd appreciate if you would bring it back to Minister Harris. I suppose the first question I want to ask is, what exactly is the age of a young adult? In the press release it mentioned that it would become available for young adults, children and young adults. That's the first specific question. Also in the press release they said that this will not be available for children and young adults on insulin pumps. So this is another question as to why these would be excluded. Minister, also could you clarify, if possible, the specific criteria which must be satisfied in line with the recommendations of the Health Technology Assessment Group in order to get reimbursement for children and teenagers with diabetes? And Minister, also another question I suppose is to build, how long will it take to build the application suite for reimbursement support? As you are aware, it costs approximately €120 per month. And this is a huge cost for families with young children and patients who are funding this themselves week on week. The sensors cost €60 each and they last for 14 days. So the monthly cost is €120 plus €6 post and package. I'll hand over now to my colleague.
Deputy O'Rourke, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Laskin Cordier. And I'm delighted to speak on this issue here this evening with my colleague Mary Butler on behalf of the diabetes community of Ireland. And thank you for coming in, Minister, to take this topical this evening. I suppose I raised this with the Minister back a number of weeks ago, and then a few days after that it was announced that the FreeStyle Libre was being included in the long-term illness scheme for adults and children, which is to be very welcomed, and we have to acknowledge that. That's a positive. I suppose now we're looking to see if we can get it to extend to all type 1 diabetes sufferers, which is massively important for them. And I suppose at the moment there's such concern and anxiety out there. The people that's not included in this have put together a campaign to try and impress on the Minister how important this is, and to that end they have gathered 13,000 signatures. And you might ask the Minister, if Minister Simon Harris, if he would be willing to meet that delegation or group, where he would accept those 13,000 signatures and meet with them for a few minutes so they could highlight the concern that's around this, and obviously hope to look to get it extended. Also, this is brilliant technology because, as my colleague Deputy Butler said, it replaces the finger prick test. But it has to be inclusive for all, and we need to include it for all diabetes type 1 sufferers. And I think it's wrong and not right to actually discriminate between one class and another, because they're all suffering from the same condition. At the moment, Minister, there's 20,000 adults that suffers from type 1 diabetes, and they are not included, or appear to be not included, in this long-term illness scheme for this equipment that's actually being made available. And also, I think what's important as well is that the HSE advocates insulin pumps to be used over other technologies there. But yet in all, there's a direct contradiction, because they're saying that anyone using an insulin pump will not be able to avail of this equipment. So there is major problems there. And again, while I want to acknowledge you being here today, welcome the fact that it is being extended to some, we need to work together to extend it to all, Minister.
Ministers, 4 minutes.
I wish to thank the deputies for the opportunity to address the issue of a new management device for children with type 1 diabetes to be provided by the HSE. Diabetes plays a substantial burden on the individual, society and the economy. Much of this burden is attributable to short-term and long-term complications. Almost 190,000 people in Ireland have diabetes. As the prevalence of diabetes rises, diabetes-related complications represent a growing global public health and health service challenge. The HSE has statutory responsibility for decisions on pricing and reimbursement of medical services in the community drug schemes in accordance with the Health Pricing and Supply of Medical Goods Act 2013. In February 2017, an application by the manufacturer was submitted to the Primary Care Reimbursement Service of the Health Service Executive for the reimbursement of the FreeStyle Libre flash glucose monitoring system. Glucose monitoring allows people to self-manage diabetes by making adjustments to their diet, lifestyle and treatment to reduce the risk of diabetes-related complications. Current glucose monitoring methods include self-monitoring blood glucose. This means finger prick blood glucose monitoring using testing strips and electronic glucose meters, as well as continuous glucose monitoring, which needs to be calibrated with a blood sample. The FreeStyle Libre flash glucose monitoring system is intended to be used as an alternative to current methods for people who administer multiple daily injections of insulin. This innovative technology allows glucose readings to be taken non-invasively and does not need to be calibrated with a blood sample. The HSE's Health Technology Assessment Group carried out an appraisal of the evidence submitted with this application. An expert group, under the auspices of the Health Technology Assessment Group, considered the FreeStyle Libre application for addition to the reimbursement list in line with the 2013 Act. The Health Technology Assessment Group recommended that reimbursement for the device should be considered, subject to certain conditions. The HSE has accepted its recommendations in principle and will be developing an application suite for hospital clinicians to use when proposing suitable patients for consideration of individual reimbursement support. This will be confined to children and young adults who require multiple daily injections of insulin in the first instance, with a review after 12 months. The HSE has indicated that it will take some months to build the application suite for reimbursement support. When the application suite is ready and in place, hospitals providing a diabetic clinic service will be able to apply for the device for children and young adults in line with the recommendation of the Health Technology Assessment Group. As patients receive approval on the application suite, pharmacies will be able to see their approval status and can dispense to the patient under their long-term illness scheme eligibility. We have made huge strides in treating and managing diabetes, and I am happy to welcome the HSE's decision to reimburse FreeStyle Libre, which will be welcome news for young people and their parents.
Deputy Butler.
Minister, unfortunately there is no new information available here, and it is really hard on parents of children and young adults who have received this information and were so excited with it, but there's very little detail. Minister, this will be a game changer. However, a time frame for the rollout is essential, and this is required sooner rather than later. In the long run, the Exchequer will save money because when diabetes is properly monitored and controlled, the amount of hospital care required will decrease. Also, Minister, I would ask you to ask the expert group under the HSE's watch to consider the additional rollout to adults as a matter of urgency. I have no doubt they will monitor closely how it affects children and young adults, but we certainly cannot have discrimination with other people in Ireland in relation to that. And also I would like to concur with my colleague in relation to the petition with 13,000 signatures, which is a lot of signatures, and I'm hoping that the Minister will accept this from the organisers.
Deputy O'Rourke is 1 minute.
Thank you, Victoria. And again, Minister, I want to welcome and acknowledge your response. And to be fair, I suppose you don't have the information or the details available to you to deal with the issues that we're raising here today. And we'd hope that maybe by discussing this here in the Chamber today, that would create the vehicle for which we could maybe sit down with the Minister or some of his appointed officials so we can get detail about all of this for the people that has been included, which is a good news story, and want to continue to acknowledge that. This isn't negative at all, but then obviously we needed to go further. And I think what's key here, Minister, is that you would ask Minister Simon Harris, when can we get to meet or get the information from him, to get a commitment from him that it will be extended to all type 1 diabetes sufferers. That's hugely important. The cost of this is €120 a month. It's a lot of money for people, you know, that's obviously struggling as it is at times. So we do need to get a commitment to know about the rollout for the people that is approved, but most importantly of all, for when a decision will be made on for all type 1
Minister,
sufferers. And the final point, if you bear with me, Les Concordia, please, is that, and will he also come back to us and let us know, will he meet the small delegation with the 13,000 signatures to see if we can discuss this and bring clarity and bring definitive delivery deadlines? Thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you again, Les Concordia, and to thank the deputies opposite again for both of their constructive and their positive approach, which both of them would be known for. So it's no surprise to this particular matter as well. And I do agree and I do accept that there's many more questions that are unanswered, and your jobs as representatives is to get those answers for those people who are very anxious about it. And you acknowledge there, Deputy O'Rourke, the cost that it is to individuals that have to pay for it, and they need a bit more clarity and a bit more certainty on it. It is a good news story, it is a positive development, but we need to know how far it goes, how long it's going to take to roll in, and when can it impact and change people's lives in such a positive way. It's no point in having a wish up there and something that's announced. We need to have it in real practice. So I will pass on your concerns to the Minister. I will reiterate the request to get the detailed answers that you want, whether it's a meeting with his officials or with himself. I will certainly pass on that request to him and encourage that process to happen sooner rather than later, so that the people, the 13,000 people who signed the petition and many others who are impacted by this will get the clarity they deserve, and that you'll get it on their part.
We should be